Hello, welcome to our guided notes, and this is Read Sunn, Navy Shuler, and Kiki Alcime, and our section was the Decolonization of Asia, Chapter 22, Guided Notes. So in these guided notes, it talks about after the Asian powers came to an end and how India created East and West Pakistan. So after World War II, the Japanese and Asian empires all came to an end, as is stated in question 1. Between 1946 to 1957, a large amount of people from every major colony in South and Southeast Asia became citizens of new nations. This was due to the war severely weakening major empires in the region. If Asia was not so affected at the end of World War II, the major Asian empires would have not been destroyed. India might have reached their independence before 1947, when India was one of the many territories under Great Britain, which was also under leadership of Louis Mountbatten, who was a former viceroy and former British naval officer. But why did Great Britain postpone India's independence for so long? Britain postponed India's independence due to preoccupation with the war and worsening relations within the region between the Hindus and Muslims. So there were two types of leaders during this time with the Hindu and Muslim relations. They were the Indian National Congress leaders and the All India Muslim League. The All India Muslim League, led by President Muhammad Ali Jinnah, who founded the group in 1913, cooperated with British administration throughout the war, increasing Muslim self-confidence and their hopes of having a separate state. Most of the leaders in the Indian National Congress were Hindus. The Congress was run by Maharajas, which means great leader, such as Gandhi and Nehru, who stated that India must run very fast just to stand still in regards to the Constitution of India. The Indian National Congress also supported the British war aims against the Axis mandating World War II life or death. But when the Congress began a new Satyagraha campaign, Britain retaliated by arresting 1,400 Congress leaders, including Gandhi and Nehru. But the Muslims disagreed with Hindu people so bad that they wanted a separate state, and that's what's being asked in question number 4. So the reason Muslims wanted a separate state so badly was because they experienced a decline in economic and social status and had much less representation by Muslims in the country's politics. Therefore, they wanted a separate state in the areas of India that Muslims were the majority. And eventually Gandhi and the Indian National Congress finally agreed that it was best to give Muslims their separate state in Northeast and Northwest, where Muslims were the majority. These two parts of the new country were known as East and West Pakistan. It is also important to state that not long after this happened, India became independent from Britain on August 14th, 1947. On top of that, around the same time this was occurring, Hindus were fleeing the Muslim state back into India, while many more Muslims were fleeing India into East and West Pakistan. This is what's covered in question 5, as more than 14 million people took part in this massive human migration, with more than 9 million going into India and nearly 6 million into Pakistan, which was known as the Pakistan Revolution. 600,000 people died in the chaos of riots and street battles during the addition of East and West Pakistan. In total, 50 million Muslims stayed in India and 10 million Hindus stayed in Pakistan. In question 6, it's pretty obvious that the violence didn't stop there, as on January 30th, 1948, Gandhi was assassinated in New Delhi by a Hindu extremist as he felt Gandhi was too generous towards the Muslim people.
There is a religion called Kashmir, which is a religion in India and Pakistan. The Kashmir religion connects with Hindus and the Islamic faith. Both Hindus and Muslims both claim Kashmir faith as their own. Kashmir is more of a way of life and less of a religion. There are 80% of Muslims that are Kashmir in India and in Pakistan. But whose Hindu people opt to join India as a majority of Muslims voted Kashmir to join India. This led to some conflict between Muslims and Hindus in India. Kashmir became a big problem with a split of Muslims and Hindus in India, which the riots and fights throughout India. In Pakistan, there was two separate sides of the country at one point. There was West Pakistan, that we've already talked about already, which was located in the Hindus Valley. The capital of West Pakistan is Islamabad. Islamabad formed half of the total population of law enforcement, 70% civil service and 80% law officers in West Pakistan. West Pakistan supplied most of the foreign aid and exports earnings went to develop industries and services throughout World War II. In East Pakistan was situated in the Ganges Delta. Both sides were separated by almost 1,000 miles apart, with bitterly hostile environments between India and Pakistan. I know we went through this video pretty quickly. Here are some extra notes to help you for the next upcoming test. Since 1900, Great Britain controlled India as a territory, such as U.S. and Puerto Rico. So it was kind of like the colonizations of Europe that we studied earlier this year in Africa. So the British would control all the official duties, I guess, as throughout India, and then India would have the day-to-day authorities and anything else. And another note, if World War II had not destroyed the major empires in Asia, India might have not reached their independence by 1947. Like we've already said in this video, it's also one of our terms. The Indian National Congress leaders supported the British war against British enemies and worked with the British allies. And so the British sent 2 million Indian troops, fought in World War II in either the Middle East, Africa, or Southwest Asia in World War II. The troops was treated just like a British troop, but they were Indian. In 1935, British officials arrested 1,400 Congress leaders, including Gandhi and Nehru. And I know you guys really don't know who Nehru is, so I'm gonna pull you up a Wikipedia page of Nehru. And Nehru was the first prime minister of India, and most Indian people did like his politics. He was treated kind of like George Washington is treated for the United States. Another note we have here: some Indian troops were prisoners of war during World War II. 6,000 troops were captured by the Japanese and sent to Germany to be ruled and be turned into pro-Nazi Indians. They lived in Germany, and they started to become part of the Nazi army, even though they weren't treated as Germans. They were still part of the Nazi officials and anything else.
And another point, during World War II, Indian industries grew very rapidly in comparison to like other periods of time. And this was because their iron and steel, they produced 1.5 million tons of steel a year, and this put them as the largest producer in the British Empire. So, like, as Great Britain was fighting in the war, they were like the biggest supplier of them for steel and iron. And then in July 1945, Prime Minister Clement Attlee, who was the British Prime Minister from 1945 to 1951, and Attlee was a founder of the Labour Party was the founder and leader of the Labour Party, until 1955. And he was also the one who declared that India had intentions to receive independence from the British Empire. And then back to talking about when Pakistan and India split, all the like riots and stuff that were going on. So the riots in India full-scale battles, and threats of a civil war between the Muslims and Hindus, Gandhi and other Indian Congress leaders agreed it would be preferable to let the Muslims have a separate state in the northwest and northeast, where they formed a majority in India, rather than another civil war in India, which would lead to Muslims migrating to Pakistan. Okay, thank you guys for watching, and I hope you guys got your notes good, and